Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Prager and Jordan Peterson chime in on what's going on in the world today. I'm Tal the Traveling Clat, your favorite Zionist prince. Let's take a look at this clip.
Remedy that.
Well, we could modify that slightly, because I think you could say that it might be the case that the values that are put forward as central in the West explicitly are the most essential human values, and that that's universal, but that a dedicated minority in any place can put the boots to that pretty damn rapidly. And so, you know, when the foreign policy idea is, well, there is a desire for freedom that's part and parcel of the human spirit, fair enough, but how much opposition does that have to run into before it's impossible? And the answer might be, and I think it could well be, that it doesn't have to run into that much opposition to be in jeopardy. Like a committed minority, even a committed small minority, can have a disproportionate effect. I think there's evidence supporting that proposition.
If I may, I want to comment on as you did, on what Adam said. I was a student at two institutes at the School of International Affairs in graduate school at Columbia, the Russian Institute and the Middle East Institute. I did Hebrew, Arabic, and Russian. So I want you to know that Adam's analysis of the Middle East was more cogent than all of my professors in the Middle East Institute at Columbia. He hit it the bullseye. The staggering error of the naive that everybody wants the same thing. And that's why, for example, I was taught the nonsense, and I talked about this on Fox News 2 weeks ago, and it sort of went viral, that the battle in the Middle East, I always knew, was not about land. If Israel were the size of Manhattan, they would want to destroy it.
No, it's not about land.
No. But every single professor at Columbia said it was land. The New York Times says it's land. They all say it's land. You know it, I know it, and Adam knows it. It's that one side wants the other side dead. That's it. And that's because of religion. Because for traditional Islam, there is no room for Jewish or Christian, for that matter, hegemony in the middle of the Middle East. Period. End of issue. They want Israel dead. There was nothing Israel. Israel withdrew from Gaza, and all they got was Hamas.
Let me ask you a quick question about that.
Yeah.
Do you see any hope? I mean, Israel has been negotiating somewhat more successfully with many countries in the Middle East now than, say, 15 years ago. Is that true or not?
Yes, in large measure, thanks to the man that is reviled by the left, Donald Trump.
Okay, so you do think it's true. Why would you attribute it to Trump?
Because Trump said, I don't give a hoot about the Palestinian radicals. They are not the central issue in the Middle East. And as soon as the rest of the Arab countries saw that America was strong and not bowing to the most radical elements of Islamic life, they said, you know what? Israel's not all that bad, frankly, and we would like to do business with it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a meta question here. Why do you guys think that conflict got dragged into this conversation? I mean, the reason I'm asking that is because, I mean, that conflict, everyone in the world, their eyes are focused on it in a way that isn't true of any other conflict. And it's certainly not a consequence of the number of people who are involved.
True.
There's something magical about that conflict, and that pertains to your statement that it's not about land, it's about religion. And maybe it's about even more than religion, who knows, or perhaps not. But, you know, what was you think that called forth that conflict into this conversation?
Adam correctly raised it. When he was talking about the gulf between liberal and left, he, to his credit, raised the Middle East as an example. Liberals were always pro-Israel. The left was always anti-Israel. And that's, if you can't see the moral clarity of the Middle East issue, Hamas primitives versus a modern liberal democracy called Israel, there's something wrong with your moral compass.
So why do you think the radical left is pro-Palestine, particularly? Why did they pick that?
I don't know anything about the region, but I do sort of know what animates people. My feeling is, and as someone who grew up with a mother who was sort of this way and a grandmother who dabbled in communism a little bit, they want to push back against everything that is. So it's more of an anarchist approach than it is, here's my plan. No one can really say that out loud, but it's sort of like defund the police.
So it's part of revolution in a sense.
Just
it's
burn
an
it all.
extension of revolution.
It's basically one house has a well-groomed lawn and a white picket fence, and the other one has a sofa rotting on the lawn and a guy smoking weed standing on the porch, and I only have one Molotov cocktail. What direction do I throw it? It's always going to go toward the house with the white picket fence if these people are lighting the Molotov
Yeah,
cocktail.
well, one of the things I have noticed about in my discussion with well-meaning people who tilt more to the left, say, than you guys, is that they are generally relatively unwilling to consider the role of dark emotions in political motivation, right? They tend to think things like, well, the people on the radical left, their heart's in the right place, but their means are wrong. But what they're trying to do is to stand up for the oppressed, however badly they're doing it. And I think, well, I had this experience. You can tell me what you think of this, but it really, I just re-encountered it. I was looking at the discussion I had with Slavoj Žižek a few years ago about Marxism, putatively. That isn't really what the conversation ended up being about. But I offered a 15-minute critique of the Communist Manifesto at the beginning. And at one point, I described it to the audience as a call to bloody, violent revolution, which is what it was. And there were a lot of people in the audience, a disproportionate number for my audiences, who had come to see Zizek kick the slats out from underneath me. And so there were a lot of people who were very far left in the audience. And when I said call to bloody, violent revolution, a good fifth of the audience cheered and laughed. And it stopped me in my tracks because it was quite chilling. You know, I heard the mob in that moment. And, you know, it was a Freudian moment. Freud noted that people often laughed at things that had deep psychological significance, and also that you could express your true feelings when you were hidden in a crowd. Well, and the true feelings were, well, the Communist Manifesto, who the hell cares about its rationality and its justification? It's like, it's a call for a violent revolution, and hooray, let's do it. And I thought, yeah, you bastards, you revealed yourself in that laugh, in that chilling, awful, unconscious, willfully blind, malevolent glee at the notion of the picket fence burning down. And the question is, well, what's generating that malevolence? And the surface story is, well, you got that through ill-got means. And so the right thing to do is to take it back. And that goes along with the claim that power is the fundamental motivation. What I can't understand is how the hell those of us who don't believe that have been so weak, let's say, that we allowed the educational institutions to be overtaken by people who are propounding that preposterous doctrine. It's like, what the hell's wrong with us? Conservatives and liberals alike. What did we do wrong?
Well, they know what they're doing in that they know everyone's Achilles heel is a claim of power, especially power that's ill-gotten. You know, your dad's rich, now you're rich.
Yeah.
And then
your grandfather was a landowner.
Right. And then race, right? So why do you think they weave race into every single subject? It gets the other side to shut up.
Yes.
And you don't have to prove your point. You just call everyone a racist, and we can.
Well, yeah, you put them on their heels right away, right? Because if you're yelling about systemic racism and I object to it, I'm instantly a racist. It's so convenient. But that still doesn't excuse our weakness in the face of that. Now, Dennis, you put your finger on something. You know, you said the thing about conservatives is they like to be left alone. Mm-hmm. Well, so maybe that makes conservatives particularly weak in the face. In the face, yeah. Right. Okay.
You see, we have fulfilled lives outside of power. I am fulfilled in so many arenas, having nothing to do with political power or running the Board of Education in my local district. I am fulfilled by my religion. As you heard, I'm religious. I am fulfilled. I love America. I love my Judaism. I love my family. I love my friends. I have synagogue every week, one that I helped found. I mean, my life is so rich, not to mention my music, but theirs isn't. Their richness derives from political activism. That is their raison d'etre. And as Adam pointed out, the term I use is chaos.
Okay, so let me bug you about that for a minute. So I have some sympathy with your argument. I think there's empirical data, if I remember correctly, showing that the most unhappy people are left-leaning men.
Right.
Okay, so but we'll leave that to the side.
Oh, really? Not left-leaning women? I think it's a tie.
So I can't remember the data well enough to cite it with perfect accuracy. So, but look, so there's young people, they go off to university and they're looking for this sense of involvement that you just described. Okay, now the leftist propagandists who are teaching them, let's say, are appealing to that and offering them a kind of romantic adventure. Now, that matches their developmental need at that point. That should be the point at which they're richly encultured by an intact myth, something like that. Well, the fact that that isn't being provided in a credible manner is what lays young people open to this kind of propaganda. So it still takes me back to the failure of liberalism and...
Right.
And I think we all know what Jordan Peterson is talking about here. He's talking about university students who are running off. I mean, it doesn't always have to be for the pro-Palestine thing, but the pro-Palestine narrative has become one with American leftism now. Like, if you are an American leftist, you subscribe to the pro-Palestinian identity, which now openly advocates for gunning down Israelis in the streets of America, just like openly. Like, that's just a part of it now. And you know, he couldn't. This whole agenda. It's twofold. There's one, it's a really shitty agenda from the inside. Okay, very, very terrible agenda from the inside. But it's also a really bad agenda that's being pushed by foreign powers like Qatar, like Iran, who are involving themselves in the lives and meddling in the lives of American citizens. It is a cancer and it needs to be eradicated. I'm not an anti-leftist per se. But when the left in America starts meddling with foreign politics, it really becomes an ugly space that actually ends up condoning colonization and going one with colonization, but Arab colonization, and it deems it non-colonization because the people are brown. Let me tell you, brown and black people are capable of colonization, and it's very, very ugly when it happens. And Arab colonization of the region of the Middle East has been going on for around 1,500 years now, and it's very problematic for everybody who lives here. So this ideology, they're smack dab on point, and I honestly could not have said it better myself. If you do want to support this channel, do subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, clans. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.